Welcome to the Pretty Deadly podcast. My name is Susie Kahlich. I'm the founder of Pretty Deadly Self-Defense, a self-defense program that I developed based on my experiences as a violent crime survivor and my 25 years training in the Japanese art of ninjutsu. Welcome back to the Pretty Deadly podcast. I want to talk about date rape in this episode. Trigger warning. Before I go forward, I am going to talk about actual incidents. I probably should have said that in the last one too, the last episode. But nonetheless, you've been warned. If this makes you very uncomfortable, then please skip the episode. I've been date raped twice, and I managed to interrupt a third, and I want to talk about it. In none of the incidents that I experienced was I spiked. I have actually been spiked. A long time ago in a club in Chicago, I had the very good luck of being with my older brother and a really good friend of ours when that happened. They were able to intervene as I started to black out, and they kept me safe. They didn't abandon me at any point when I said that I was feeling weird. So whoever spiked me and whatever they were trying to do were foiled by my wonderful older brother and our very, very good friend. That being said, the first time that I was date raped was in one of those really sneaky ways that these things happen. It was New Year's Eve, New York City, the 90s. I don't remember what year anymore. I had been dating this guy. I guess our relationship wasn't going well. Some of the details of the relationship I don't remember, but I guess our relationship wasn't going very well anymore. He was out celebrating New Year's Eve with a bunch of friends. I joined up with them, but he was going home with another girl right in front of me. It was terrible. I was really upset. We had all been drinking. There were some drugs floating around, and I participated in that too. But I was together enough to recognize that I was being majorly dissed, and I was upset about it and was screaming at him in the middle of the street in Brooklyn, probably calling him an asshole or something, like you do in your 20s when this kind of stuff happens. Among the group of people was some friend of his that I had just met for the first time that night, some guy who lived on Staten Island. He had come into the city to celebrate New Year's Eve, and he stood by me and he said, "Susie, I'm so sorry this happened. This is really, really terrible of him. Let's get you calmed down and I will walk you home." What a nice guy. So he walked me home. And he commiserated with me and had his arm around me and said, "I know this is really terrible and you're a good person and blah, blah, blah. And how could he do this? But, let's get some sleep and, make sure that you get home safe." So we get to my apartment building and he says, "Well, it's super early in the morning and the ferries to Staten Island aren't running yet. Can I crash at your place for a couple of hours?" And I say, "Sure, absolutely," because he's been so nice. He comes upstairs to my apartment. I suggest the sofa. He suggests my bed. I think it's going to be okay because he told me that he was married and he had a baby, a 3 or 6 month old baby or something at home. So yeah, I thought it was all right to share the bed. Again, I'm in my 20s. We all do really dumb stuff like this. He tried to make a couple moves before we went to sleep. And I said, "No, I really don't want this. I don't want to do this." And then I went to sleep believing I was safe. I woke up at some point later to this guy on top of me running away and me saying, "What are you doing? Get off of me." No, I said, "I don't want it." He did get off of me. He left, and I thought I would never see him again. I wrote an article about this incident in our local paper in Brooklyn. We were a really tight community back then. And what happened was a lot of women came forward and said that something like this had happened to them too, but they never knew what to call it. Not with this guy, but in general. So this is the 90s, and date rape was not that common of a term. I looked this up once, and date rape as a term was coined in like the late 70s or the 80s, but it didn't really come into common parlance until the later 90s or the early 2000s. So a lot of women were sort of relieved that someone put a name to something that we had all experienced and didn't really know what to do about. It wasn't clear that we were violated, even though in my case, I very clearly said no. That guy heard about the article in our local newspaper and showed up from Staten Island one night in the bar where basically everybody in the neighborhood hung out at, and confronted me and screamed at me and called me a lying bitch and whatever other violent stuff he was shouting at me, which was, I didn't name names in the article, so it was a little weird that he knew it was him. But yeah, whatever. Anyway, that was the first time. I pushed him off of me, but basically the deed was already done. How I pushed him off of me was I just placed my hands on his shoulders and I pushed up while I twisted my hips to the side. I used my core and my upper arms to get the guy off of me. He didn't really resist too much, but again, the deed was kind of already done. The second time I was date raped was 20 years later when I was in Paris. I had a lover who was really toxic, is the best way I can put that. I had taken a trip back to see my family in the United States, returned to Paris. I was very, very, very jet lagged. And that same day we went to a dinner party. I drank some wine. The jet lag and the wine in my 40-year-old body did a number on me. He offered to take me back to my place to make sure that I would get home okay. I just passed out. I went to bed and zonked out. I woke up the next morning and he said, while you were asleep, I couldn't help myself. And I kind of had sex with you while you were passed out. That certainly was the beginning of the end of that relationship, but it wasn't the immediate end. That may seem strange to some people listening to this podcast, but on the other hand, if you've ever had this happen to you, you might know those feelings of, well, he confessed it the next day and kind of mixed up with that, like, well, I guess I'm so attractive he couldn't help himself, because we're all taught to think this way about ourselves and about rape, which is weird. It was confusing. It wasn't cut and dry. I had feelings for this person. I had my own insecurities as a 40-something-year-old woman. As I said, it definitely was the beginning of the end, because I went to sleep believing I was sharing a bed with someone I could trust, and they broke that trust in the worst possible way. Is it ironic that that's a French person after the whole Giselle Pellicot incident? I don't know. Is it endemic only to France, or is it in general? I don't know. Anyway, there wasn't really much I could do to defend myself in that situation, since I was completely wiped out. But dealing with the situation in the aftermath was something that I did with a certain amount of care and carefulness in order to start extricating myself from what was obviously a very toxic and dangerous relationship. The third time that I was almost date raped was also in Paris. This is several years later, still in my 40s though. The toxic guy is long gone. I am at a nightclub. I pick up a guy, he picks me up, whatever it is, it's mutual. We have full consent. We go back to his place. But while we're there, starting to mess around, I learn from him and he learns from me that neither one of us are equipped to have sex, because neither one of us have a condom on us. We are completely naked at this point. He has been kissing the back of my neck and my back. And so I'm basically laying on my stomach and he's laying on top of me, and he whispers in my ear, well, even though we don't have a condom, we can do anal. Now, I don't do anal. I've never done anal. That for me that particular orifice is a one-way street, and it's not the way he was talking about. So I said, no, I'm not interested in doing that. Now, no judgment. I mean, if I know people do it. It's fine. They really enjoy it. Great. It's just not something I'm interested in. I said no. And he pretended not to hear me. So he started getting a little closer to going someplace I really didn't want him to go. And I started to panic and think, oh my God, this guy is not hearing me. He's not stopping, and he's getting more and more aggressive. And I am going to be completely torn apart. I am going to be experiencing an enormous amount of pain. And I am going to have to live with this now. And this guy is going to get what he wants at the expense of my utter pain and trauma. He's going to be satisfied, and then he's probably just going to comfort me and then feel like we're bonded because he hurt me. And then as the person who hurt me is also the person to deliver comfort. All of this was going through my head, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do? He's not going to stop. I can't get him to stop. I'm like, what am I going to do? And then suddenly something inside of me clicked. And I thought, these are the words I thought to myself, Don't you remember who you are? And so I moved an elbow back really quickly at the same time that I pulled up my knee on the same side. Again, this is moving my hips in a certain direction to get him off of me while giving him a really solid elbow jab at the same time. He rolled off of me in shock, clutching his chest in pain and saying, "Ow, you didn't have to hurt me." And I said, "But you were going to hurt me." He said, "You could have said no." And I said, "I did many times, and you apparently didn't hear me. I needed you to hear me. So if you couldn't hear my words, I needed you to hear the rest of me. But you didn't have to cause me pain. You didn't have to be violent. You didn't have to hurt me," he said. And I said, "I'm sorry. Did I not tell you I'm a martial artist?" Anyway, we've now incorporated that move into our Pretty Deadly Level 3, where we do train about date rape, and we call it the Frenchman. Learn more about Pretty Deadly, find classes near you, or learn about our trainer certification programs at prettydeadlyselfdefense.com. Follow us on Instagram at Team Pretty Deadly, and you can find my very inconsistently posted rantings about politics, capitalism, sexism, and whatever else comes to mind on TikTok at Pretty Deadly Boss. The music that you hear is Icarus Wish by Berlin-based band Dead Centuries.